Hey, my friends. I know that many of you are aware that we recently sold our business, and this has created quite a bit of change for me, for my family, for the club members, for my clients. And we wanted to share with you what are some of the lessons learned from this experience. And I think it's applicable for anybody who has a career change that's either planned or unplanned, that you could take some of these lessons, apply it to yourself, and yeah, and maybe be all the better for it. So let's check it out. Let's see what happens when you have a big life change here on Triple F. Who's this? Hey,
Hello, how's everyone doing? Hope
we're
we're all
back.
Yep, hope you're doing well.
Oh, I shouldn't hit the disc. I'm just so excited to be
Yeah,
here.
well, I know when you do that, man, it just like bangs everything. See,
Bong, bong, bong,
you be a
bong.
drummer. Um,
So
so
good to see you again.
yeah, good you see you too, man.
Yeah.
You look all refreshed and everything, man.
hmm
Have you had some big news lately, man?
Well, I mean, we talked about it last time that sold the club, and
Sold the club.
now I'm trying to settle into a new routine, and that's its own adventure
Yep.
and challenge.
Yeah. So,
So,
so, so, just as some background, I mean, everybody knows that you own several Anytime Fitness gyms here in
mhm,
the Katy area.
correct.
And, that's when we started the podcast, you were like the gym owner. And
Yeah.
so you had all of this, and plus your personal trainer on
hmm
that. So you had all that going on. And so recently, as we've announced before, you've sold the clubs now. You're kind of out of the ownership side of it. You're kind of, I think you've kept on with personal training and you're
Yeah.
still working for the clubs,
hmm
but not as an owner anymore, as kind of a personal trainer and that sort of role. And so, we've talked a little bit about, once this happened, that we could maybe have a podcast that kind of gets away from the fitness, and the weightlifting and all
hmm
that stuff, and kind of maybe blend a little bit with finances a little bit and talk kind of about, business ownership, uh, what it's like, you know,
hmm
owning a business and then suddenly selling that business,
Yeah.
but still being in the area, still being part of the gym, and just kind of maybe some of the mindset stuff and some of the business stuff that went on,
hmm
and so maybe today we just have kind of a discussion about that, and
hmm
I think it's interesting. I talked a
Yeah.
little bit about it, and for any of those folks that are listening that may be a business owner and thinking about selling your business, this may be helpful to you. And really just in general, I think is going to be kind of interesting to talk about because I know I'm a member of the club actually, Anytime Fitness, and I've just been a member, and so talking to other members, there's a lot of anxiety on members. Brains and what have you that, we don't know what exactly is going to go on with the new management. When you're part of a small gym like we are at Anytime Fitness, you kind of get used to a certain routine, a certain style of club, and so when things change, it can create some anxiety amongst the members.
Yep.
And so, kind of as a member, and you as the previous owner, and now
hmm
still a personal trainer, maybe we can just talk a little bit about that today,
Yeah.
and kind of get where your mindset's at now. You
hmm
talked about all this free time you were going to have. So, did it really?
yeah.
Did you really get free time? So,
Oh, yeah, yeah. So, I think this can apply to anybody who's going through a significant career change or a direction in their life. They've kind of pivoted and decided that the direction they were going in had either ran its course
yeah,
or, they're just interested in some other aspect. And in fact, this is actually the second time in my life now that I've done a pivot. We've talked about in the previous episodes that I was in oil and gas, much like you
right,
in my previous career. And then in 2018, pivoted into the fitness industry. And then now, almost 10 years later, now pivoting again. Now I'm not moving out of the fitness industry, but just kind of moving out of this role.
right,
And so whenever you make a change like this, there are components of it that you intellectually will be able to uncover, right? That you
right,
can explore and predict. But there are emotional pieces also that you might be able to predict. But what is usually underestimated when you have one of these shifts is just the magnitude of that emotional toll, that you figured, oh, I should be able to handle that. And then you go through it and you realize that's not the case. Now, sometimes we have shifts like this. Let's say we get laid off, or we're just not satisfied with where we are, and then we make these choices on our own, or someone enforces them on us. these shifts can take place, and then we have to deal with the emotional toll. And so as a previous owner now shifting into a more of an employee mindset. Now just technically I am technically still an owner. We still have the Sugarland location, but I'm just not there on a daily basis, so it's not the same kind of ownership because my brother runs that club. So the challenges that have arisen have been interesting, and I wanted to kind of share some of those. So high level, what are the obvious changes that when you have a major shift in your daily routines, what are the things that you're going to experience? So, as an owner, or maybe if someone's out there who's in a position, maybe like you were,
Mhm.
you run a team, you have people that work for you, especially as you get later in your career, you get into your 50s and stuff. Generally, by that time, you're managing multiple people or multiple locations and such. So this can be applicable to all. But if you get shifted out of that, there is a sense of loss of authority,
Yeah.
like you feel like, hey, I don't have that ability to guide and direct and manage anymore. There's also an identity, like you lose the ability to say, I am responsible for this
Right.
or I do that.
So kind of back it up a little bit before you even actually sold the club and you were
Hmm.
thinking about selling, 'cause I think it came on fairly quickly that you had this opportunity
Yeah.
to sell the club. So did you have did you had you looked far enough ahead to have expectations as to what you thought it would be like once you sold? Because I'm interested to kind of know what you kind of maybe your expectations were after the sale and how it made and then how it actually turned out.
Yeah.
So when you got ready to sell the clubs, were you thinking ahead about,
Hmm.
you know, how this might be and what your role might be afterward and that type
Yep.
of thing?
Yeah, and a lot of that did develop pretty quickly because I think prior to this particular opportunity with this new ownership group that we sold the clubs to, I had always envisioned that I would step away and I would just go on and do something else, right?
Outside of the clubs.
Yeah, just a whole nother chapter, whether that's teaching in a junior college
Yeah,
or, going on a mission with my wife, those are the things we were kind of like pies in the sky, that
right.
would be a significant change. But with this particular ownership group, that altered that because part of this in the sale process, when we were reviewing like revenue, like where is revenue being generated and so forth, one thing that was important for them was, hey, I'm a trainer, I generate revenue in my personal training. How do we compensate for that? Can we transition your clients to a new trainer? We quickly found out that that was not likely. A lot of my clients would not be willing to switch. And so I said, well, I really like training. I mean, I would like to continue it. My initial thought is that I would back out of these three clubs, offload my training, and then just go start working more in Sugarland and do PT there, right? And just
Right.
continue my love for training there, just with a much smaller client base. But now with this dynamic with this new ownership where they really were looking at the revenue going, hey, we'd like to maintain this revenue. Is there a solution here? I said, well, I don't mind staying on if that's something that you're open to, and I'll just continue training my clients, and then you just basically pay me as a trainer, and then I'll simply support my brother in the Sugarland location from a distance. So that did alter it. Like the nature of the deal itself altered my trajectory going forward. So it actually kept me tied more to these clubs than I initially thought.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and that does lead to some of the complexities that now I experience related to authority change,
Right.
identity change. My routines have changed. My influence on others, including members and other employees, has changed. All my relationships to some degree have changed because I'm no longer the owner, and so I no longer, because of the authority, the identity, and so forth, I no longer have that same kind of relationship with members. And also a piece of myself has also changed, right? I think when you look at businesses like this, these small businesses, I think what maybe people who are a typical W-2 employee maybe underestimate is that these businesses are a lot like like a child, like it's like your children. It may be like your like your pet, like a dog or a
Right.
cat that you really love and you
Part of your
care
family,
for.
yeah.
You feel like that pet or that child, and in this case, a business, that they can't operate without you actually being there. Now, with children, they will develop, they will acquire skill sets that allows them to be able to go and operate on their own, and that's kind of like how you hope the business will be. That it is sufficient enough to operate on its own through the caretaking of another owner. And so this transition of going from, hey, handing my child off to someone else has not been easy, especially since I'm like I see it
Right.
every
You
day.
live, you live it. You live in that environment.
Right. I'm seeing my child being treated and handled in a slightly different way than I would do it, and that's very difficult. And so I'm finding myself, because I initially was like, "Hey, I could help with keeping this revenue, and it would also serve me in a way that I get the satisfaction of being able to do what I love, which is personal training." I think what I underestimated was the emotional toll that this
Yeah.
change placed on me.
It's almost like you live in a house for 15 years and then suddenly you sell the house
Mhm.
to someone, but you just decide to kinda rent it back from them,
Yeah.
and suddenly you see repairs that need to be made, but as the renter, you're not gonna pay for those, and so you
Yeah.
talk to the owner, well, they don't really care about, the gutters leaking or
Mhm.
whatever's going on, and so it's like, "Man, this is a house I've really, I nurtured this house for a long time, and now
Mhm.
someone
Yeah.
else isn't nurturing it quite as nicely as I was."
Yeah. It's so real. It's so
Or,
true.
things are they don't really care about the yard like I used to care about the yard or the landscaping, so no, I can see how that would be that'd be and your challenge now is that you're kind of still working in that environment,
Yeah.
but it's not yours anymore, so
Yeah.
you're just kind of working as an employee.
Now, this may not be as applicable to a lot of people watching this, and that it's not likely that many people are going to sort of leave a position and then go into a more, I think, what you would call more of a subordinate position, right? That doesn't typically
Yeah,
happen.
but what was going through my mind is, like, even when I retired, and I've talked to other people who have retired, when you
Mhm.
work at a company and you're like, part of management or whatever,
Mhm.
and you have a job at least in your mind, you feel is, like, super important.
Yeah.
You just wonder, "Man, I'm not gonna be here next week or
How's it going to
next month.
survive?
Is this company just gonna go under because I'm no longer here," And
Yeah.
so how needed am I really? And then what happens is you leave and then you retire and nobody ever
Mhm.
calls anymore. It's like,
Mhm.
well, I guess they were able to survive without me.
Mhm. Yeah.
But this is a little bit different because when you retire, you actually leave the company and you're not there every day,
Yeah.
and it's not actually your baby, it was just a job for you.
Mhm.
But, yeah, I can see how this would have
I think the equivalent would be if you were to have retired officially out of your position, but the company kept you on as a
as a
consultant,
consultant, yeah,
where and then you're still viewing
yeah,
and advising, but your advisory role doesn't necessarily equate to, oh, this is what they're going to do. They
yeah,
may take your opinion, but then they may go in a different direction, and you have to deal with the emotional toll of them not, of you feeling like you're not valued
yeah,
enough
yeah.
by that organization to go your direction.
Yeah, I always made the decision once I retired, I did not wanna go back and work as a consultant or a contractor, so I really wanted to wait until I was ready to retire because of those
Yeah.
things. I don't wanna go back,
Mhm.
from being a manager because I actually hired, contractors at the job I was at that were actually previous high managers in the company. They came
Mhm.
back as just kinda consultants and
Yeah.
contractors doing kind of,
Mhm.
little work. It wasn't the same work that they were doing before. It was a lot less,
Mhm.
of authority and what have you. So it was difficult. But
Yep.
yeah, so
Yep.
so ho so, you know, is this changing? I mean, are you having co are the members that you're
Mhm.
still working with, are they still seeing you as having more influence than maybe what you have?
Yeah, and that's another area that was a surprise for me is how members view my situation. So there's a couple of examples of some inadvertent landmines that we've exposed mainly because I've stepped on them, and and then some other aspects as to what members just naturally assume is going to be the case now that you're not the owner. So I'll go through those two real quick. So one landmine that we've uncovered is that what I see members doing now is they'll come up to me, either they know or they don't know that I'm not the owner, and they'll come up to me and say, "Hey, Tyron, I need this." Because they're used to doing that. And I would have an answer. And I'm kind of wired, just, hey, let's solve problems. I think that's what's
Right.
one of the reasons that has made it successful is always there, always on it, trying to make sure members are getting what they want right when they want it, right? And so members get used to that. So what happens, and this is very interesting once we play it all the way through, is that a member, like, let's say you come up to me and you're like, "Hey, Tyron, I need Jordan's membership transferred over to your son Gary," which just happened,
Yep,
right?
yeah.
So David comes up to me, asks me this question, and then I reply back to him. I say, "Hey, David, appreciate you asking. I'm not actually the owner anymore, so I can't do that for you. However, if you go talk to Daniel,
Mhm.
who's the club manager now, and you talk to him about what you need, I'm sure they can take care of it for you. It doesn't sound like anything too difficult for them to be able to handle.
Right,
Because in my tenure, I know that that's as possible for you to transfer this membership,
right.
right? Or the ownership or responsibility. But what happens is those words where I say, I'm sure they will be able to help you, inadvertently got me into some trouble, because what happens is that you as a member, you go into Daniel's office and you say, "Hey, Tyron told me that you should be able to transfer Jordan's
Mhm,
membership over from me to Gary. Will you take care of that for me?" Right? And
mhm.
so you're actually leveraging me as the former owner to acquire what you're looking for,
Yeah.
right? And so when and then what that does is that the new ownership or the new management sort of gets put on the defensive, because now they're hearing the previous owner is making like is giving guidance and direction, which may be out of his wheelhouse now that he's not the owner. And so they then respond with, "Well, that's not our process anymore. We actually have to go through this process, and that requires this, this, and this." And then the member, let's say David, then doubles down, is like, "Well, that's not how it was when Tyron was the owner. It was much easier. I just had to go to him. He just made it happen. Why is it that this is so hard and feels so corporate like?" Right? And then this just further puts a divide with them and the member. And then they come back, "Well, I'm sorry you feel that way." And then they sound kind of condescending now. "I'm sorry you feel that way, but we're going to have to do it this way. And if that's not how you're willing to do it, then I'm sorry. That's just how it has to be." And then the member does even more. They double down even more and they say, "Well, then if you can't do it, I'm going to go back and talk to Tyron because he could get it done." And then they go back and then they go tell me, and I'm sitting there going, "Well, wait a minute. Why is this now a big issue? Why why am I?" And I get caught in the crossfire because people are leveraging my previous role, thinking that that's going to help them get what they
You
want.
you were an on-site owner and you handled all these things as an on-site
Mhm.
owner, where now the ownership is a group and it's somewhere else. It's not actually in the club itself, and
Yeah,
so
yeah. They have a much bigger footprint as far as the number of
and
clubs.
yeah, and I assume they have so many clubs and they're trying to put
Mhm.
processes in place
Oh
to
yeah.
make it standardized.
Mhm.
It's hard if you have 90 clubs, it's hard to have 90 different processes, so
Yep. Yep. So the other one,
so
the
I kinda see
second
both
one.
see both sides of it, but yeah, it does
Mm.
create some friction, I
It
agree.
does, yes, and we've had our talks about this, and I've actually had, because this is the first time they've had an owner kind of come back into the organization to work for the organization. Apparently, at least the people that I'm dealing with, is the first time this has happened for them, and so for them, they're also not quite sure how to handle this. Right? They're kind of dealing with some emotional reactions, and they may not know the dynamics that are at play here. And so I actually had to sit down with the operations manager for this entire region and kind of explain to him, "Look, these are the dynamics that are taking place, and this is what members are doing. This is what I'm doing." And we had to really be able to identify where this landmine is so that we don't keep stepping in it, both
Right.
me and them. And so it's been a learning process on both sides. Now, the other area, the second area where members maybe make an assumption, is that I'll get a member come up to me after the sale and they'll just be like, "Man, doesn't it feel great? I mean, you don't have to worry about any of this, none of it, right?" And they assume that somehow there's like a switch that you just turn off what has made you who you are,
Yeah, your
right?
identity, yeah.
Because when you think about it, I think the things that makes business owners successful are certain attributes, right? There are certain attributes that we could go into in depth
Yep.
and such, but those attributes are not found in every, and maybe they are, but I think if you were to say, "Hey, these are the list of 10 attributes," and small business owner, this attribute is, they've got 30% of this attribute, right, that makes them up, and then this attribute is like 20%, and this attribute is da da da. And then you look at a W-2 employee, may have a lot of the same attributes, but maybe the percentage of those attributes are smaller or greater in different areas,
Mhm.
right? Like avoidance to risk,
Right.
risk tolerance, self motivation, these types of, you see a problem, you go fix it. These types of things may be different amongst these types of personalities. And so the things that make us small business owners successful, you don't just turn that off,
Mhm.
right? They're still all there. They
You
still make
said
us
that
up.
mindset. Yeah, you got
Yeah.
that mindset.
So if I see that something is broken or a machine is not operating like it's supposed to be, in my previous role as the owner, I would immediately go and fix it.
Yeah, go with the screwdriver and start working on it.
Yeah, like last week, the Pin Oak location. Last Friday, we found out the Pin Oak location AC has been out for like a week,
Uh,
right? And I'm sitting here going, "What? How could it possibly be that AC has been out for a week and this has not been escalated?" Right? And so I find out, so I immediately start calling people. Remember, I'm not the owner. I start calling people. I'm like, "Hey, club manager, is the temperature is it been out this whole time?" And he's like, "Yeah, we're not sure exactly what's going on." I'm like, "Did you report it?" Like
yeah.
there's just obvious stuff, right? Did you report it? And then you come to find, okay, let's start troubleshooting. Let's start checking the thermometer, the thermostat. Let's see if we can. Maybe the coils are frozen over. Let's thaw them. Let's see if we can get it back on. And so eventually I was in contact with the area manager and it was Friday afternoon and I said, "Hey, area manager, do you want me to go check it out?" Because he was out of town. I was like, "Do you want me to go check it out? I can go over there and I'll just check it. Maybe it's something simple like the condensate line blew off in one of these storms and now the filters are all flooded." And he's like, Yeah, I was actually surprised. He said, "Yeah, can you go check it? That would be great." And so I told my wife, I grabbed my tools, went over there to the Pin Oak location, got up on the roof, and then started what ended up being about a 6 hour,
Oh, man.
just back and forth trying to fix it, eventually coming to the conclusion that it was a compressor issue that I could not fix. And then it turned into, let's find a tech who could get out there as soon as possible to officially diagnose it and come up with a solution. And then that led to early Saturday morning. I was back at the club with the technician that we were able to find, diagnose it was a compressor. And then eventually they had to replace the entire unit.
Mhm.
$22,000. And I'm not throwing anybody under the bus here, but the tech said if it had been reported back when the temperatures started to rise, let's say earlier last week, they could have saved the unit,
Yeah.
right? And there's lots of details there as to why. But when you have a corporate group come in and take over, you remove a club owner like myself who's naturally seeing all these things every day, and you have to backfill that
Yeah.
somehow. And if you don't backfill that and have like club managers who are actively monitoring these things, well then they could go without
Yeah. Yeah, there's
identifying.
as the owner, there's a lot of roles you take on that
Mhm.
are hard to replace because it's not like you sit down and you list all the roles you have because the roles probably change from day to day and week to
Mhm.
week depending on what goes on at the club, so
Yep.
but so you need kinda that ad hoc problem solver, I guess, and that's
Yep.
hard to replace.
It's hard to replace, and I also find a lot of fulfillment out of being that problem solver, and I
Yeah.
think most small business owners have that attribute where they see a problem, they go fix it, and I think that's what makes them generally one of the reasons or one of the attributes that makes them really successful, and not everybody has this, like, not everybody and I'm 100% certain of this. Meaning that at least not to the point individuals may have like, "Hey, I need to solve a problem." They may have it, but it may not sort of be over a threshold where they see a problem and they've gotta go and fix it. They just feel compelled to fix it. A small business owner typically will have this attribute where they're going to be a go-getter, but because they're like that, it's actually one of the success traits that actually helps their business actually be able to thrive.
There's a difference between an owner, somebody that's it's an owner versus somebody that's a manager. An
Yeah.
owner feels I mean, you're it's yours. I mean, it's your you get paid based on what the club does, and that's your moneymaker, and that's I mean, it's gotta be successful because you're the one taking all the risk. The manager
Mhm.
is, just an employee,
Yeah.
basically, so
Yeah. But just one little thing on that. You know, eh, some people would say, well, it's pinned on the fact that it's what makes you money as the owner. But I'm going to tell you, I very rarely now. This is because we were always sort of we always seemed to be making money, so
mhm,
it wasn't something that I was like, oh my gosh,
yeah,
we've got to really be making more money, right? Because we're not making enough to pay the bills. It would be different. Like if it wasn't a cash positive flowing business, I would be more stressed about that.
right.
But because the business was sort of
Cash flow, yeah.
it was cash flowing
You didn't have to
positive.
focus on that part.
Yeah, so that was never really a big motivator for me, like on the day to day. What was a motivator was I just want it to be perfect. Like, I wanted the business to be operating at its peak efficiency every day, and if that AC unit is out, that is something that is keeping that sense of fulfillment from actually
Yeah.
happening. Yeah, the other thing, maybe I don't know if you thought about, is being an employee again, which is related to everything that we've been talking about. But also the other issue that has come up is people that I now work with on a day-to-day basis used to work for me,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, that kinda goes back to when you retire, you come back as a contractor, you're now working for the person that took your job.
Mhm.
And so you're going from the manager to the employee now, so
Yeah. Yeah, that
so how's
dynamic.
that transition been? Is
Oh, well, it's been hard for sure, but it's not just hard for me.
yeah.
I think it's
It's
actually
hard for the
harder for
manager. Yeah,
them.
it is, it is.
I think it's harder for my former employees.
I was in that situation too as a manager, and I know that when of somebody quits and they come back or, used to work for someone, now when you were younger, now you're older, and now you're a manager, and they actually work for you.
Mhm.
That's a
Yep.
tough deal not only for the employee, but for the manager also,
Yeah.
so
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's not easy, and we could probably do a whole episode just on that dynamic of that relationship. But I think in general, the hardest part is caring. Like, I just care
mhm,
for obvious reasons, right? That was our baby, but not no longer having the control.
yeah,
So caring, and how do I deal with that emotion without really having the pass or the green light to actually do
to
something
do anything
about
about
it. So I'm kind of operating within a lane that is not too well defined yet, but just so happens that after we're done filming this podcast, I'm heading out to Fulshire to sit down with this area manager who
mhm,
I was talking with the pin oak situation with the AC, and we're going to sit down and kind of better define what this swim lane is. And actually, I'm a little bit, to be honest, a little nervous to have those lanes defined,
mhm,
because then I have to find a way to operate and to feel satisfied within those lanes. And here's the problem for all of you watching. There could be a moment in the future where we do an episode and I simply just announce that, look, I couldn't do it. I could not operate as who I am and how I'm built within this defined swim lane,
yeah,
right? That it wasn't fulfilling enough for me. It was too difficult emotionally to see the club operating in a new way, that I was no longer able to influence in a way that I feel like it should be.
mhm,
And that is a real
yeah,
possibility. Now, what I'm hoping is that I can emotionally detach from that, stick emotionally to my clients,
mhm,
focus on them, train them, and then everything that's happening around that, that I'm able to disconnect from, and then use other outlets like this podcast, our other podcasts, and other avenues like the Sugarland location, just to try to create that fulfillment in those areas that I
yeah,
really need.
yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, so I was wondering how that was gonna work 'cause, I've seen that dynamic in the past, and I know it's difficult, especially and I've never been an owner of a business and then
Mhm.
became the employee of the business, but I was wondering how that dynamic was gonna work
Yeah.
because 'cause I've asked you several times, and so we thought we'd just talk about it today on the podcast and just kinda get out there. It's kinda interesting for those that have been in that situation before.
Mhm.
It's also something to think about if you're thinking of a career change,
Yeah.
what type of change is that and how's that gonna impact you? Because the emotional side of it, that can be a huge toll.
Yeah, it can literally make or break you
Yeah.
as far as that choice that you think you're gonna be able to emotionally handle.
Yeah.
Um
Especially I know how passionate Tired was also. I mean,
Mhm.
when he came in and I've talked about it before, but when he came into the club, I mean, you could tell he was very, hands-on,
Mhm.
very caring, had his way of doing things, and it was a really good way, and the club's been just thriving. And so, you notice when he's not there anymore now, there are some small changes here and
Mhm.
there. We haven't seen a lot of them yet because he's really only
Mhm.
sold the club, a month or so ago, so it hasn't been very long, but,
Mhm.
we'll see how things go and evolve along the way, and hopefully everything stays good and,
Yeah.
'cause I really do enjoy the club,
Mhm.
but, you do when you're a member of a smaller club that doesn't have all the other stuff
Mhm.
associated with it, you really you want things to kind of stay, how you've grown accustomed to. So
Yep.
we'll see how things go. Maybe there may be some things that are better, maybe some things that are worse, but we'll have to see how things
Yeah,
develop.
give it a
And,
chance.
so
Give it a chance.
and then I guess you need to come over and I need to give you some counseling more on this
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah. I need like a therapist. I
That
mean, I'm serious. You're not. I quickly find out. You know that when you go through it, you quickly find out
you
just
need a
like who
therapist.
you are. You know, you find out who you are.
So this is going to be now we're going to go from finance and fitness to finance
It's
and mental health.
mental health. Yeah, yeah. It's the new trend.
It's the, yeah, everybody knows it's a safe space. This podcast is our
Yeah.
safe space.
Yeah. So be nice in the comments. Actually, just make a comment. We appreciate that.
Oh man, well that's interesting stuff,
Hmm.
man. And so I'm looking forward to hearing how things kind of go in the future, and we'll revisit this from time to
Hmm.
time here on the podcast and just
Yeah. You never
see how
know.
things are evolving and what have you.
Exciting.
So because I
Yeah.
know you have a lot of clients, man. Every time I'm up at the gym, you're up there training somebody, so you got a lot of people
Yeah.
you're talking to and training and
Yeah. I love it.
connecting to. So
Hmm.
well, with that, anything else?
No, no, that's
For
good.
so I think that's gonna be it for this. This one is a little bit different podcast. Hopefully, you enjoyed the discussion, and, if you have any comments or, feel free to leave them. If there's anything
Hmm.
else you wanna hear about this, any questions you have on this type of a situation, just leave them for us. Like and subscribe to the channel if you would. That's all that we ask. It's totally free.
Hmm.
And until next time, we will see you later.
See you guys.